Amy Heymans, how are you today?
Hi, Christine. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you for joining me. I'm honored you're joining me today. When we connected, it was about 6 months ago. I believe I told you I've been a big fan of your work for a couple of decades. I'm honored you're here.
Oh, thanks. And I've enjoyed your podcast,
Thank you.
Sessions
Thank
with
you.
Women. So thanks for the work you're doing.
Well, it's so funny. You're welcome. About a week after we connected, a mutual connection reached out to me and said, have you spoken with Amy Heymans? The way she described you, and it's spot on. She said, Amy is a force for good in the community. She's incredible. She's focused on the intersection of wellness, healthcare, and design. You need to speak with her. And I said to our connection, yes, I am. And she is incredible. You're the co-founder of Mad Pow, which was acquired, I believe, in 2019. So you've been going through some shifts yourself. And I'm thrilled to speak with you both about your career in design and your leadership and building an agency, but also just hearing the lessons learned over your career. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, so many lessons.
Well, this is unfair too to kick it off. I've been asking this question to everyone I've spoken to, and the unfair part is, can you share a bit of your career trajectory, your entire journey in a couple of minutes? That's the hard part. You've accomplished so much, but how would you tell us about your journey?
Yeah, sure. So I loved art growing up. In college, I decided to focus on design. And actually, before college in high school, we had a tremendous art department at Burlington High School with wonderful faculty. I was in my senior year taking 4 or 5 art classes. So, very fortunate for that, but majored in design. And I liked design because it was making sense out of the chaos and harmonizing different elements. And that formal training in design critique, how to talk about design, how to talk to other people, how to give constructive criticism, it was truly formative for me. But I actually left college after 2 years and started a family. So I had my first child when I was 20. And that really gave me a lot to work for. And then I had two more children along the way. But basically, I worked at an agency during the dot-com boom. The agency was a marketing agency, and every single company wanted a website. And I helped the agency form their user experience practice. So I went from graphic design to visual design to coding to then user experience design, because I realized it's not just about how something looks beautiful from a branding perspective. It's also about, does it work for the people using it? Is it useful, usable, desirable? So I started to really immerse in research and testing and information architecture and wireframing. And I loved it. I loved the strategic side of it. But the dot-com bubble burst, I was laid off, and it was actually great because I started freelancing. And when I was freelancing, I teamed up with somebody I worked really well with at the agency, and he ended up being my business partner at Mad Pow. We started working together in about 2002, just freelancing, teaming up. And then we were like, we have something here. This is great. Like, let's grow. And we did that. We grew to 70 people, multi-millions in revenue, working across health and finance and social impact. And throughout the course of that, we went from digital design to experience innovation and service design, deeper ethnography, into behavior change design, so leveraging psychology, behavior science, neuroscience to design interventions, and then into futures thinking. And so futures thinking is actually my current academic pursuit. I love that area. Over the course of that sort of practice trajectory, I also formed the healthcare practice at Mad Pow. So we started doing work in health around 2006. And we loved doing it because we can impact people's lives through this work in a really meaningful way. And so we started doing a health conference, the Health Experience Design Conference, and started working with all the health organizations and hiring all the amazing people doing work in health experience design. Toward the end of my time at Mad Pow, I was like, oh boy, like, what am I going to do next? I wanted to make impact at scale. And so I decided to join United Healthcare and was able to get a lot of good stuff done while I was there. There are tremendous people there trying to do the good work of improving people's lives. The system is complicated. There are lots of constraints and hurdles and barriers, but I was able to build a great team and up-level the practice while I was there. And so there are folks there still fighting the good fight and trying to get amazing work done so that people can get healthier without going bankrupt. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm. There's so much I wanted to unpack with you, Amy. Back to early in your career with the dot-com bust. You said you were laid off and it was great. And I wanted to touch upon this a little bit because the market for many people in the design space right now is feeling a little challenging. And I'm curious, during this period where you were laid off, you started exploring with your partner, you started freelancing. Do you have advice and perspective for people who are feeling not so great right now? What are your lessons learned during that period?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, when it happened, when I was going through it, it was not wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It felt terrible. It's a loss, it's a change, it's a rejection. You start to question, like, who am I and what am I doing? And am I valuable? And what's going to happen in the future? So I had all of those feelings. I ended up going to a seminar that talked about networking and how you should have lunch and coffees and connection with real human beings, map out the entire ecosystem of everybody and just like consciously reach out to them. And I think it was sort of different back then, right? Over 20 years ago, networking didn't feel as transactional as it does now with the on-screen time and LinkedIn and everything. But the principle still stands that you can apply to jobs online, but you're just a number, you're just a resume. And so the best path into organizations is through relationships. I always had a mentality of service. Like, I want to help every person I come across in a meaningful way. So I always want to be helpful. So in that spirit of building relationships and being of service and being helpful, I always try to do that. So it's not just like, hey, what can you do for me? It's like, hey, no, like, let's get to know each other as people, share our stories, enrich each other's lives. And if something comes from it, great. During that time, I had lunch with a former colleague. He set me up with a contract and I got my freelancing world started from there. But what happened in that time is the world as we knew it was over. People didn't even know if the internet was like going to be a thing, right? And it was just this period of, okay, what's going to happen next? The old order is gone. And so what's the new order? And so it was very messy. And that's how it is now. It's very messy with AI taking over and all of the disruption and people looking for jobs. And I think one thing comes through to me, and that is, what do people need right now? And how does your experience potentially meet that need? And so beyond title, beyond role, what are people actually looking for? And that's where those conversations with human beings really help, because if you listen with a researcher's mindset, you're going to understand, okay, where are they at? What are they looking for? And how can I provide value? There's a lot of things that need to be done. And I feel like, again, we're still trying to figure it all out. But if you can somehow like align what you love to do or what you're good at with where the needs are, I'm hoping we can still find work. The thing is, it's just on a different level. It's on a fractional level, or it's just a gig. Right now, I'm designing growth experiences for companies. Companies want to grow. So that's what they're wanting. That's what they're needing. That's what they're asking for. So trying to align myself and my team with experiences oriented towards growth and helping companies in that way. So networking, face-to-face relationships, knowing people, getting out there and trying to figure out where the need is and how you can meet that need with your experience and the human-centered lens that we bring, because I feel like that's huge. Like how we are, the design collaborative, we synthesize, we facilitate, we envision, all of those beautiful things organizations need, right?
Yep, absolutely. Amy, another thing from the outside, when I've been looking at your work, one thread that seems to be throughout your career is that you're constantly thinking about what problems and challenges you can solve or fix. But I feel this, and I've seen this from your career, it's about how do you serve others? This whole notion of how do I use my skill set and expertise to serve? I've seen that in your work and I've been incredibly impressed.
Thank you. I'm motivated by that, right? When I had the team at Mad Pow or the team at United Healthcare, I was motivated to work hard for them, to do blocking, tackling, to do the vision, to do the hard work, to do the getting out there for them because I loved them. Like I love my team at Mad Pow. I was like, how could I ever love again? And like stuff. And then I went to United Healthcare and I was like, oh my God, I fell in love again. And I loved those teams. And I would do anything for them. And so it's with that mentality. Now, I talked about growth and it's like, oh, Amy, you sound like a dirty capitalist. No, that's not it. Because, like, for example, I facilitated a workshop a couple of months ago for a startup in health that has the potential to meaningfully help patients in a way that the need is unmet in the marketplace. So if they're successful, it will help people. They'll only be successful if they figure out how to make money. So sometimes you're literally improving the health of people by helping a startup figure out the best business model and how to get to cash flow positive and what is their go-to-market strategy, right? So I believe in those virtuous circles where how do we create scenarios where the business is winning and the people served by the business is winning. I believe that when you do good, you're going to do well. And that there's longevity in a strategy that is born from the needs, desires, wants, and in service to the people that an organization serves.
There was another observation I had, and I'm curious if this is how you felt internally. With Lift Up, I'm meeting with a lot of women who are mid-career, senior career, and one of the big conversations that comes up is when they look back at their career trajectory, they reflect and have sometimes said, I haven't been playing it big throughout all of the periods of my career. And when I've seen your career, you talked about you and your partner at the time for Mad Pow. You started Mad Pow in 2002. This was early-ish in your career, and talk about making a big swing. Mad Pow was a powerhouse in the community. As you were mentioning, you grew it to 70 plus people, multi-million-dollar studio. Do you recall at that time in all of the periods, I see you as someone who has always played it big in your career. Is that how it felt along the way?
It's such an interesting question. And I'm almost thinking of like, what's going to come out of my mouth because I'm not sure. So, for example, I'm like a rule breaker in a way where we're trained as designers. We see patterns, we see systems. We're constantly being like, well, why is it that way? Why couldn't it be this way? So I always had an entrepreneurial mindset of don't just cope with standard protocol, invent a new protocol, right? And so, and I knew there was a lot of problems to solve and I wanted to solve them. And why not us, right? Just as smart as anybody else, just as talented. Who cares that we're from New Hampshire? We ended up expanding into Boston as well, but why not us? We care, we can do this. And so we would call the biggest companies, we would go to the biggest conferences, because I always would say to folks on the team, don't be selfish. The world needs your perspective. Don't keep it to yourself.
I love
You
that.
have to let it out there. You have to let them know how wonderful you are and the ideas you have and the brilliance and how you see things. So when I was young, I was bold, I was fearless. Now, life happens, right? And then you get knowledge and wisdom. And now at this point, I'm like, am I still bold? Am I still fearless? Knowing everything that I know, it's like, oh, I can see the like 90 ways this could go wrong. But people deserve better. And I do believe in our sort of species of designers, of human-centered architects, if you will, that the world needs us to improve. The world needs us to find a better way. And so it's a duty thing or like an obligation. We owe it to the world. I used to say to folks at Mad Pow, we owe it to the world to grow because people need a job at an awesome agency. And because all these organizations, they're trying to do great stuff, but they need an inflow of fresh new thinking. And we're here to deliver that for them. So that's sort of what guides me along those lines. But the problem with authority, like you could say, I like to invent new models, or you could say, I have a problem with authority. Probably a little bit of both.
Well, coming from the UX community, so I've been out on my own off and on for 20 years. I know many other UX consultants. I don't know as many folks like you who have built an agency from 2 up to 70. I have spoken with a lot of people in the UX world who talk about building an agency, and it doesn't happen. And I had wondered along the way, even as you were growing. Well, first question, could you have ever envisioned what Mad Pow would eventually be when you and the partner at the time started? And second, was there any point during that period growing this powerhouse business that there was some doubt? And how did you handle that?
Yeah, I didn't have time to think about or to doubt, right? It was like hustle, hustle, hustle. And I'm right back into that hustle that I was at in my early 20s, just working really hard, talking with people, getting the work done. When you make an agency, for us, it wasn't like we said, we're going to go build this agency and it's going to be amazing. We were like, we need to pay the bills. We need to pay the mortgage. We need to feed our families. We need to find where the work is and win it, do a great job, have people talking about us, coming back for more. So we just focused on the work and doing the work. Now, we were also lucky. The timing was good. We basically designed the World Wide Web together, a community of designers at that time, right? And helped companies clean up their websites and their systems and all these things. That the timing was right. Now, if we went and did the same exact things today, could we be successful? Maybe, but there needs to be an ingenuity of open-mindedness and acceptance of new tools, new processes, new points of focus, like AI. How do we use AI? How do we design AI? What is an AI offering? What could an agency that's based in primarily figuring out that connection between human intelligence and artificial intelligence? There's probably a market to be made there, but it's going to involve reaching beyond how we had been doing things and learn again. It's frustrating. I'm like, come on, I'm late in my career here. I really got to learn a new technology at this point. Like, yeah, I do.
Are you in my head now? I think that a lot too. Absolutely. I had wondered, this is a question I've been asking everyone I've spoken to, and I'm really curious about your answer. You were talking about starting your career being bold and brave and taking action. I'm curious if you could go back to that version of yourself, knowing what you know now, what lessons learned would you share with that version of yourself?
Just enjoy the ride and have fun, and it's all going to work out. If it fails, it'll fail. If it succeeds, it'll succeed. Really visualizing what success looks like. For me, I was always focused on what's next, because I was really growth oriented, abundance mindset. What's the next goal? Let's go get it. And this is the way, right? When a chapter has ended, you look back and go, wow, that was a great chapter. I wish I enjoyed that chapter a little more. Mm-hmm. But taking time to really digest everything going on and enjoy it and not worry so much about how it's all going to turn out. The worry is hard, though. I even still worry today, but knowing that I can't control what's going on, I can only do my best to provide value, even if that involves a career change. So be it. That's not what I'm contemplating. Although sometimes I'm like, maybe you could be a therapist. Like, I think we all have those moments.
A lot of us in the design world and research world, I am hearing that consistently. Exactly. Like maybe we should be therapists. We care about people. We know people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had wondered with what's going on today, I would like to ask, a lot of the women I've been speaking to are thinking about what's next and in this messy middle period. So I would like to delve into that and get your take. But before we do, can you speak a little bit about what's happening now in your career? I know you're CEO of Beneficent.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It is. And clearly I should have picked a different name because nobody can pronounce it right.
That was me. And I even practiced.
No, it's an English word that means for the good of all. And it's like a combo between beneficial and magnificent. That's why I liked it, because I want to do things that are beneficial for businesses and the people served by businesses. And I want it to be magnificent. So I like the term for that reason.
I like it, and I'll continue to practice. And also, your conference is coming up, Dignified Futures. Can you speak about what your charter is for your business now, where you see it going, and the mission behind your conference?
Oh, yeah, sure. I love that. So the concept of Beneficent is to do experience, vision, and transformation work in health, finance, and government, leveraging, obviously, human-centered design toolkit, but also futures thinking. And we really put a focus on participatory design and preferred futures or aspirational futures. So how do we co-create a vision for a better world in complex regulated industries, looking at the systems themselves and the experiences? So from vision and then figuring out what is our path to transformation. So that's sort of the crux of what we do. And it's basically a team of people like you, people like me, people who are expert, top of their game, and can come right in and hit the ground running. So a team of subcontractors that we gather together, whoever is the best fit for the project, doing various things like redesigning an EOB or facilitating go-to-market innovation for a startup or convening a group of folks to figure out what would a world look like where we prevented harm to families from opioid use disorder, what we need to change from a community health and government perspective to enable that, to how do we leverage AI to de-risk what's going on in the organization. So it's really been fascinating. At Mad Pow, I feel like our focus was on like growth and scale, and not even like we tried. It's just that there was the need in the industry that led to that growth and scale. For Beneficent, it's more about, I want to do work that we all love with people that bring us joy. Interesting, worthwhile, meaningful subject areas, fantastic team, and just enjoying the work we do and creating meaningful results. That's the focus now, and I'm super grateful for that. With that in mind of collaborating towards better futures, I ran the Health Experience Design Conference for 10 years, and my friend Chris McCarthy ran a conference called the Innovation Learning Network conference out of Kaiser Permanente for probably over a decade as well. And I went to his conference, he went to my conference, we're friends. And after leaving our organizations, we were like, oh, we missed this. We miss convening people. We miss that energy and the learning and inspiration. So we were like, let's do it. Let's make a conference together. So we did Design for Dignity last year, exploring the intersection of health and social impact, looking at systems thinking, futures thinking, experience design and innovation. We had 150 people last year. We did not give out any drugs at the conference, but it felt like everybody was just like up high. It was just the energy and the love and the ideas and the insight. It was vibrating. It was so wonderful.
I would assume it's a like-minded group who shares very similar values. I could imagine that's where a lot of the, as you said, there aren't drugs, but it's a natural high, right? Right? When you're around your people.
Yeah, exactly. So we decided to do it again. And I mean, running a conference, you have to be crazy to do it. It's like masochism manifested or some sort of insanity. Because you do this thing, you don't know if anybody's going to come. So the next conference is in Atlanta in June. But people are signing up like crazy.
I'm seeing that. Yeah.
Because with everything going on in the world, people see dignity and they see what would a good future look like. We have to just not like look at the mess. We have to figure out what would good actually look like. And we have to convene and be inspired by one another and relate to one another just to like get the nourishment to keep going.
Well, I had wondered if that was part of the charter for the event as well. It's a messy, scary time. And I'd be curious your take for the conference. A lot of people I've spoken to are saying they feel a lack of control and agency, and they're feeling a lack of connection and community. And you're speaking to both of those facets with your conference, where it is allowing people to convene and take action, right?
Yeah, exactly. We can convene, we can speak, we can learn. We were promoting the conference within government agencies, and our emails weren't even getting through because some of the words in the emails were on the banned list. But we can convene and we can learn from one another. And so that's one positive action that we can take that will have ripples. I talk to people and they tell me, Amy, I went to your Health Experience Design Conference 10 years ago. And I met someone and partnered up with them and did business with them. And we built the connections, the literal human connections, serendipitous connections and the ripples that can happen because of that are just amazing.
Well, can I ask you about futures thinking a bit? Because I'm thinking about the UX professionals that won't describe themselves as future thinkers. With future thinking, I have 20 years of experience in the design thinking space. I work with clients where our approach is, I described it as a long-term experience vision. So clients in healthcare, finance, nonprofits, where using design thinking approaches, I'll work with them to map out what that ideal future experience could be and take action on it. To what degree is that futures thinking? I never described it as such, but I'm curious, is that it or is there more to it?
Yeah, there's definitely more to it, but
Yeah.
remote was the bridge for me because we did a lot of North Star, and I still do a lot of North Star vision work. Because if you just like get stuck in incrementalism, it's a patchwork quilt and you're not really getting anywhere in the end. You're sort of just like meandering along. I'm all for agile, but if you're truly trying to invent something net new, it's good to come up with that lighthouse or that North Star to guide you, and you can get much further, faster with that mindset. But futures thinking, there's no data from the future. We don't know what is going to happen. And I think we've seen that again and again. There are possible futures, there are plausible futures, and there are preferred futures. And so you can look at signals of different interesting things that are happening. And you could imagine, like, well, what if that thing took hold? And if that took hold, what would happen? And then if that happened, what would happen? And then if that happened, and you could kind of extrapolate out based on signals that haven't even become a trend yet. If they were to become a trend, what future we'd be looking at? And we're looking at a portfolio of futures. There are thousands of potential futures, right? But then when you narrow in on, okay, we're seeing things happen, this is becoming a trend and this is becoming a trend. So when these collide, it may become increasingly possible or be plausible at that point. Then there's like dark futures. What if things went really, really wrong? Which I think you need to think about that because you need to think about unintended consequences and what could go wrong. A lot of times we're designing for the happy path and we just kind of like save the exception cases for later. We know if any of us have tried to use a chat bot and it's like, this thing doesn't understand what I'm talking about, then you know you're in the exception case group and the thing does not know what you're talking about because you're not on the happy path. So that's important. What you're talking about is like preferred futures. How do we want it? What could it actually look like? What would be a technique, a futures thinking technique? And there are so many frameworks and techniques. And that's what excited me as a designer because I love to try out new tools, new frameworks, new techniques. So one of them for preferred futures is called rigorous imagining. So it's a technique where everybody literally closes their eyes and imagines a world where everything is working well with all of their senses. Now, that's one technique. But then there are different areas of futures, like experiential futures, where you literally create almost like a movie set of what the future could be like. It's almost like stepping in a time machine. So that technique can be really good at influencing people in a seat of power who are making decisions that are going to impact the future. One example was the parts per billion of carbon in the air is increasing. And if you play that forward, it's going to be a certain amount of carbon per billion. And what futurists did was put air in a container that represented the way the air is going to be in the future, and then ask leaders, do you want to breathe from this? Like literally, here you go. Do you want to take a breath? And nobody wanted to. The research methods are different. The ideation methods are different. And there's like actually an academic basis for it. I took a couple of classes at University of Houston in their futures thinking and speculative foresight master's program. I talked a lot about futures thinking, but speculative foresight is really applying it to the corporate and government areas and using futures thinking and foresight methods to really evaluate your strategy and de-risk so that if this happens, how is our organization going to react? If this happens, how is our organization going to react? In addition to the preferred futures aspirations.
Amy, thank you. This is so, so helpful. As you're speaking and teaching me more about futures thinking, thank you. it's fascinating to me. There's also something that I was thinking about as you were speaking, and it's going back to, I wanted to ask you about career growth and inflection points. When you were speaking about the work you're doing in this space, I get the sense that throughout your career, there's also been a thread of you have a growth mindset, that you're constantly learning. You talked about learning new technologies, you're moving into this new space. In terms of advice and perspective you have, this seems like a big aspect of how you approach your career. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I love to learn. So, podcasts, books, videos, conferences, teaching classes, taking classes, and going down the rabbit hole. Like, I remember when we started with Mad Pow doing just UX for digital, that was it. But I started noticing a trend. I had done some call center research, and I was like, these people are having terrible experiences when they call the company. We're over here designing the website that is not going to fix this thing going on over here. And so it started to go like, okay, it's about the omni-channel experience. It's about CX. These are all things we know now, but at the time it was sort of revelatory. So I love kind of looking for those. And it's almost like you notice I feel disturbed. Like I feel disturbed because I have a new idea or because there's a frustration or because, and then you just like become one with that disturbance and kind of like follow it through and then find the thing that you really believe and then share it out there because then you find out other people are seeing this too and other people are believing this too. And then you start learning from each other and then, things kind of go from there.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that. We've talked a little bit about the messiness, both for people in their careers, but just the world in general. And one thing that's been coming up working with mid-career and senior women, oftentimes the mindset is, and they're trying to shift it, but it's too late to shift and make huge pivots. And the conversation is it's never too late. And I wondered from your career, and you spoke so eloquently about your career trajectory, has there been a point in your career where the inflection point was great and you were wondering what's next? And can you share a little bit about how you approached one of those inflection points?
I feel it important at this moment to break the curtain in a way. My inner monologue, my critical inner voice is a very bad lady. Like she is very mean. And I oftentimes feel like this big buffoon or imposter. And it's funny because I tell my students, I'm like, there is no imposter syndrome. You can do it. And so go do it and stop making excuses. But at the same time, it's there. I try to ignore it. I try to ignore her. And what I did in the past was like, I looked up to somebody. Her name is Alex Drain, and she's just this badass in health. And she would get up on stage and she would just do these amazing things. And I'm like, just pretend you're Alex. And so she was my sort of, if Alex can do it, I can do it kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, a lot of not feeling worthy. I couldn't believe I got the role at United Healthcare that I did. And I was honored. And I sort of knew I was qualified, but along the way, I was like, are you sure you can do this? Do they think you can do this? All of those voices and all of those things.
I think we all have that voice, but you felt that way too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My two isms is perfectionism and people pleasing. Hamsters in my brain are working overtime on, is this person going to be upset? What does this person need? How do you not make a mistake? Like, how do you keep everything going, right? I also have ADD. And so to show up as a normal person, quote unquote, I have to work really, really hard. And I learn a lot from my kids. I have a daughter who's 26 now, and she tells me about masking. It's like at some point, does the mask become who you are? I still struggle to this day of like, do I liberate myself from this mask, or did the mask help me evolve into the person that I was always capable of being? Do you know what I mean? I kind of like try to figure all that out. But I think taking a moment to just reflect, trust your intuition, and just keep trying new things and exploring new things and knowing that you deserve to be there. yeah, it's really a balance, and I go back and forth. Some days I'm like, I'll show them what I can do, like bring it, and days I like just want to curl up in a ball in the corner and
Well, thank you for sharing. I have one of those inner voices too. I think a lot of us do. And I'd be curious your perspective in terms of calming that inner voice. For years and years and years, I did the be quiet inner voice and just keep bulldozing through. And over the last few years, I'm trying a different tactic of, okay, let's try to talk and understand that inner voice. Have you found with the tactics you've taken, given where you have gotten in your career, is there a strategy that's worked best with that inner voice who's saying, you don't have it? Has something worked for you?
yeah, so some thoughts there, because you know how you can give others advice better than you take it yourself. So the advice
Never.
I've heard, right. The advice I've heard but have yet to incorporate is saying, hey, thanks, brain. You're trying to alert me to the fact that something could go wrong. Like, I appreciate that. So basically taking anxiety and turning it into information as opposed to like something that sort of devolves into panic. And, that's cognitive behavioral therapy and all that. But I think I found it hard to do that. And actually what I do is just like, just keep going, just get through the day, just get through this meeting. So really compartmentalizing things. But that can be challenging because then you don't feel like an incorporated human being. And I think that mentality ended up through a period in my career, I was a workaholic. And it's because I was so focused on the things at work, just compartmentalizing, that I was so focused here, I forgot about the other compartments.
Mm-hmm. I hear a lot from people back to that approach. Take action on the next thing and keep taking action incrementally. I hear you though. It's advice and perspective I still hear all the time, but there is another side of this that it can lead to being a workaholic and continuing ongoing, never pausing.
Yeah. And I'm not a workaholic anymore, meaning like I don't work crazy hours
Mm-hmm.
because I value rest and I value family. So I stopped that over a decade ago, but I still define my worth and value as a human being in terms of what I'm able to achieve, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's ticking something off the to-do list, whether that's getting a degree or doing a thing on the career bucket list. So I'm trying to, again, like people pleaser in recovery and wanting to understand that my value is more than what I'm able to accomplish, that I have innate value, just like you have innate value, just like every human has innate value, which is what is also called dignity, which is something I'm passionate about, hence the conference. But even making space to not have the best day or not necessarily be nice all the time. And that's not to like allow, misbehavior. Kindness is always important, but just to make space for not being perfect, making mistakes, and giving myself the grace around that.
Mhm. This topic came up. I was recently talking with Kyle Susi, who runs her own podcast. I love her podcast, the UX Consultants Lounge. And we were talking about this very topic where she's been spending a lot of time, and I have, and others in this messy time, thinking about self-worth. What we spoke about is that it's really easy to think that you have internal self-worth when everything is just going wonderfully around you. When you really, really test out your internal confidence and self-worth, it's when things are getting really messy and you're no longer getting the same external validation. I had moments where I was like, whoa, my self-worth isn't actually where I thought it was. It's now a wake-up call. Like, okay, work on building myself up a bit more. But have you had those moments where it's like, whoa, because you've had a lot of wins in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. When I started out, I had nothing, and it's easy to go from nothing to something. But then when you get to the point where you have not just something, but something really special and you lose it, then you start to go, okay, well, what did that thing signify for me in terms of my self-concept, or even like why I enjoy being in this world kind of thing? And for me, it was being surrounded by a team of brilliant people and learning from them and being inspired by them, right? So I had that at Mad Pow, I had that at United Healthcare. Post United Healthcare, it's just me. So I've been on a journey to explore a new way of being where I had to embrace the solitude and pick my coworkers, meaning that the people in my career that I want to stay connected with and be inspired by, just become friends with, almost like you have those colleagues like in the office who are so special and they sustain you. I'm thinking about my business partners at Mad Pow or some close people I had at United Healthcare. You need that even when you're a solopreneur kind of thing. And I think without a team, I felt like I was less valuable as a person. I'm just Amy with no team. So I had to deal with that.
That's really that's really helpful to hear. I've been on somewhat of a different track. What I'm learning in these messy times, part of my identity was wrapped up in being a solopreneur. I'm also a single mom by choice. I've always felt like I can do it alone. And I took pride on being able to do it independently alone. But being alone and trying to do everything on your own, as you said, you're experiencing, it can be isolating. It can be tough just being like just Amy or just Christine. My lesson learned is I do want to broaden and connect with many more people. This is new to me. Like the fact that we hadn't spoken until the last 6 months, it's because I got this. But no, connection is where it's at. It took me 50 years to figure that out.
Oh my gosh. And that's the thing. We were talking about career shifts and changes. My mother always used to say, we're saints under construction. And what that said to me is we're more than we were before and we're less than we will become in terms of all the learnings and the growth and the findings. And you'll keep learning and growing till the day you die. So it's just that experimental mindset. And I think what I struggled with too is, okay, I'm a successful entrepreneur. Like I grew a business, I sold it. And I'm like, oh, maybe that was the pinnacle. And as you get older, it's like things gradually start to peel away. Your kids leave the house. People you love might pass away. You downsize to a smaller house. Maybe you take less of a job in terms of title and pay because you want to have more free time and you really don't want stress in your life anymore, or because of what's happening in the industry. And so you go from this period of building, more, bigger, better, faster to slower, more intentional, less, and making peace with that whole process. But what you're adding is enjoyment, relationship. So it's just a different lens.
Absolutely. Amy, I could speak with you for a whole other hour on this topic coming up, but I have a couple minutes, but I really, really wanted to get your perspective. And you spoke to it early on, sharing your story that you left college and you had a child. And you said, once you had a child, it gave me a lot to work for. And where I would love to get your perspective as fellow moms, one thing that I've struggled with is figuring out how to balance motherhood with my career. Once I had a kid, I actually stepped back a bit from my career. I know when you had your children, you were building a business and growing it. I'm just curious, as a mother, how many kids do you have, and how did you manage to continue to expand in your career during that period?
So I have three wonderful children. My son Sam's 27, my daughter Maya is 26, and my son Diego is 20. And my youngest, his life tracks with the growth of Mad Pow. I was pregnant with him when we closed our first deal.
That's unbelievable.
So it's pretty crazy. What I meant when they gave me something to work for, I had kids young and I needed to provide for them. And I was married early on, but then their father and I separated and I ended up being a single mom. I literally had to put food on the table, but also I was looking after like their future, their security, thinking, okay, if I give my all to this business, it's going to provide us some level of security financially. It'll pay for their college and this and that. Now, before I had kids, if you asked me, what do I want to be when I grow up? I would have said a mother, and a good mother at that. I had a wonderful mother. She was there for me. She only worked part-time and she was just phenomenal. And I always wanted to be as wonderful as she was while also growing a business. And so I had all these balls in the air and trying to juggle them. And inevitably, I would fail with something, whether I was late to a meeting because of a soccer thing or a kid thing, or I forget my kid at the soccer field because I was in a meeting. Literally couldn't do it all. So I had to forgive myself for that. And when I was with my kids, focus on them. But I wasn't perfect. And I'd say that I don't know why, but I prized financial security more than emotional security. Going back, I think I would have forced the emotional security over financial security aspect and just spent more time with them or figured out how to get better boundaries. But also, they saw me kick ass, do TED Talks, and I took my kids around the world when I was speaking at conferences, and they learned a lot when I was doing conference calls on the way to the soccer field. So they're very savvy. And so where I do have regrets, and you always do as a parent, like, I wish I could go back. I wish I could do that thing over again, do this different, whatever. I also honor the fact that I did the best I could with what I had, especially considering that I had a very volatile relationship with their father, and I've endured a lot of pain in my life. And I would just keep going and keep trying to be the best mother I can be and the best entrepreneur, boss, colleague, whatever, vendor, whatever, whoever I was, sister, daughter, in whatever context, just, try the best I could. So
I so appreciate your perspective, Amy, because for all working parents, but also saying during this period, like single mothers, I just was visualizing, a balance beam, and there's emotional presence and then there's financial presence and freedom, and both are really, really important. And I think that's something that we're all dealing with. We'd love to be as emotionally present all the time, but we want to give our children financial freedom, financial security. And how do you find that balance? Nothing is perfect. I understand that completely. At some points, I've heard women saying, oh, I was there present all the time, but now they're a little concerned about the career path. There's no easy answers.
Yeah, definitely. I think it might be a grass is always greener on the other side situation, but it's actually obviously coming from a point of privilege. Some people are struggling to put food on the table, struggling to get a job. They might need support from friends, family, even public support. That creates a great deal of stress and trauma that I don't wish on any. That said, the other side of the spectrum is privilege and entitlement and too much, and that's not good either. So I think a little bit of financial struggle is good if it helps parents set boundaries. Giving your kids everything they want and need is not good for them. So yeah, I think it is a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, I mentioned at the beginning, I was so thrilled to have a chance to chat with you. I knew I'd learned so much, and I did. So thank you. I'm so grateful for your time today. For those who want to find out more about you and find you and learn more about the conference, where can people find you?
Oh, great. And by the way, it's been a pleasure. You're so wonderful. Okay, so
Thank you.
LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, Amy Heymans. It's like, hey, man. And the Dignified Futures conference is at designfordignity.com.
And it's happening in June in Atlanta.
June 3rd and 4th in Atlanta. And it truly is going to be amazing. I mean, the speakers we have are just like ridiculous. So even if you're not in health, you should probably go just because you're going to be like, be cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This has been so much fun. Thanks, Amy.
Same here. Thanks, Christine.